Who are these people that we bow to and call authority? When did we become such complacent cowards that we quiver at the sight of anyone in a uniform? How did we come to think that we have no power to challenge that authority, since those who claim to be our masters are truly nothing more than beggars, parasites, and thieves? Criminals of the highest order who have merely claimed authority over you. Have you ever thought to yourself, why are these people better than you? What have they done to deserve this lofty attitude about themselves? Where do these people come from? The way that I see it is there are basically two types of people in the world: honest, hard-working people who want the best for their fellow man. These are the people who produce things. These are the creators of art and music, real music, not that Justin Bieber type corporate boardroom approved and empty MTV type, but real original musics. These people are the ones who build the roads and structures, the ones who invent new technologies and design amazing new concepts. The people do this. Then there are the parasites we call government. These people have no talent, so they use deceptive tactics to steal everything the talented, honest, and useful people create. They are the police, who are the front line of the corporate theft ring. They want everything you have to fulfill a quota, and if you violate any one of 1,000 of new laws that they call statutes written into things called acts, you can be certain that these men with guns will be sent to take your stuff. If you don't pay your extortion fees called taxes, fines, and tickets, or appear in their administrative houses they call courts to address unlawful charges, then the police will no doubt be sent to your house, and they will violate you for the state regardless of cause or intent. Their first order of business is to make you comply. Willingly or by force you will be made to comply, since you, to them, are nothing more than contracted slaves. These mercenary goons can easily determine your status as a card-carrying slave by asking you for ID, government-approved ID. The second you show them anything, they will assault you. They have orders to first identify, then they have the right to assault you. Never show them ID. You have no obligation to ever show them anything. If you wish to tell them who you are, then do so. If not, then don't. But it is best not to piss off the mindless drones who carry guns and tasers. They are just itching for a chance to use their toys of mass persuasion whenever they get the chance. Tasers are merely the human equivalent of a cattle prod. If one of the sheep wanders too far from the flock, they will then cattle prod you back in line. This is their intent. Their job is slave control. How did we get to this point? When do we begin to realize that everything we think we know is created and contrived in a boardroom by the same people who use the media and the public school system to intentionally create the perfect environment to allow your enslavement? In grade schools, you're taught basic social interactions based on hive mentality that is really no different from being in a prison, except that at such a young age you would never think that adults would intentionally be steering you in the direction of statist thinking. They are just starting to mold you into their world of compliant ignorance, and if for whatever reason you become bored or show any signs of intelligent thought or restlessness, they have you sedated and tell the parents that for little Johnny's own good he will need to start taking one chemical or another so as not to disrupt the training of the other children. Almost all children at one point or another are diagnosed with some form of social condition that they need to be medicated for. This has been foretold long ago by men like George Orwell and Aldous Huxley, who wrote of this chemical conditioning. We now live in a society that does this to children regardless of the side effects. For further ease of conditioning, the food and water is poisoned with fluoride, aspartame, lithium, and other poisons that destroy the minds of children, and these poisons ultimately become a part of the adult consumption as well. Most people will never recognize that they are being poisoned, and they rarely ask themselves why so many people are sick, why so many people have cancers, learning disabilities, autism, and various other ailments common in society today. But I'll tell you why this is happening. Doctors are trained, whether unwittingly or for what they see as the greater good. They create diseases they claim to be trying to cure by using vaccinations and various different chemical drugs that they inject into people daily. The textbooks these doctors learn from are written by the Rockefeller Foundation and the Carnegie Institute, among others. These are the same corporations who have investments or secretly own the large pharmaceutical companies. They have a vested interest in selling drugs. From the first day of medical school, doctors are taught not only sell drugs, but to remove organs. It is all just butcher, radiate, and medicate. This is the basis of their practice. It has nothing to do with health. If they wanted to teach health, they would teach exercise and nutrition. Cancer has been cured for 40 years, but with a multi-million-dollar-a-year industry at stake, they will simply allow you to die before letting you know you have a chance. They could never allow these many cures to become public knowledge, things such as keeping the body alkaline, the use of baking soda, apricot kernels, cannabinoids, DCA, the soursop fruit, and so many others. Please research these things if you are unaware and have loved ones who are dealing with doctors who only know how to radiate, butcher the body, or chemically treat this condition. Everything you have been taught to this point leads you into high school. Many of these places now have armed guards standing in the hallways, which they tell you is to make you feel safe. But what it really is just more conditioning to create the environment of social conditioning that tells children clearly that you must accept government authority. Everywhere these high school-aged children go teaches them that they need to have ID for this or for that. They see it at their local convenience stores. To buy cigarettes or alcohol, you must have this government ID and be of certain age. But it is perfectly fine to buy other legally toxic beverages like Red Bull or Rockstar, unless you have government identification, or you can't do this or do that without some form of government permission. In the schools now, chemical drugs are very common. Most of the children at this age are on some form of drug. For the controllers, this makes the training much easier. Ask a child in high school today what he learned in school. He'll look at you with a glazed look and not know what to tell you. Many children are basically illiterate today. Their reading skills are two-syllable at best, and most words are abbreviated nonsense written into a text screen. The idiocracy is encouraged by watching mindless TV like MTV and most other TV programming. It is called programming for a reason. Look up Edward Bernays, the nephew of Sigmund Freud, to learn about this man and how he taught the TV media to brainwash an entire society through ads and the use of neurolinguistic programming. Most children walk around with cell phones and electronic devices that captivate their attention, and then they go home and play the latest version of the Department of Defense created murder simulators like Call of Duty and Halo. Since the people who now control the thinking of these children also control the economy, these children will rarely have a chance to find an opportunity to work. They make it very engaging and exciting to let these children strap on a gun and go to fight wars of terrorist aggression in foreign lands to steal drugs and other resources for the corporations that once again control their entire lives through indoctrination and scarcity. What they want is useful soldiers, and these young men and women have been trained since their first days in school for just that purpose. Let's say for all intents and purposes you decide that you do not want your children vaccinated or indoctrinated into the public school system, and choose to keep your children at home and teach them properly. The state will eventually show up at your door. First, they will send their child protection services workers, or what they call social workers. Then they will want to find out why the child is not in school. Is he being truant, or is he being intentionally told not to go to school? If you refuse to answer any questions or refuse to comply with their demands to put your child back in school, they will undoubtedly send some police with guns to enforce the removal of those children into some sort of foster care for fear that you might actually teach the child something useful. They are abducting children every day with excuses of child endangerment or neglect, as though they know what is best for your children, and you have no say in the matter. The true reason they can do this is because when you register your children at birth, you give legal title and care of that child to the state. You are merely a caretaker of the child for the state. How else could they claim any rights over your children if not by contract, which is told to you as necessary? They never tell you why it's necessary. You never get full consideration. You are forced into contract by your own ignorance. Once you have signed the child over, it is a product of the state to do with as it pleases. Okay, so now the child has an opportunity to go to what they call an institute of higher learning. The child now has choices, but the choices are few. They are few for a reason. Asking a child what they want to do when they grow up is a very telling question and answer for young people. They might say, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be an actor. When I grow up, I want to be a policeman or a politician, work for the government or be president. I doubt you will ever hear a child say they want to be a stripper or a cashier or work at Walmart or McDonald's, but that is typically where most will end up. Or perhaps they get recruited to drill oil for the corporations or work for the government in some other capacity, like becoming an accountant to help facilitate the theft of taxes. Or for the most part, being left uneducated and desperate, they will become criminals or join the military. There are few opportunities these days for factory labor or for trades in the private sector unless you have, by some other training, acquired a government license to do so. Everything is controlled by government. No one is allowed to create their own lives anymore. That would not hold well for the tax collectors, and once you step out into the real world of work, and that is now your life, paying extortion called taxation. For those with connections, typically the sons and daughters of lawyers and doctors, you may have a chance of joining into the club at a beginner level, but that is usually only available to those who have money or who are well connected. And let's say you do get yourself enrolled and accepted into an Ivy League school like Harvard or whatever type of school that teaches law or medicine. You first have to prove that you have an affinity for unquestioning recall, retention of whatever you might have been told to believe, and a clear observance of the rules of society. Perhaps your family is very wealthy and already part of the big club. You may be made an exception in that case, but the chances are good if you are born into the club. Nepotism is the usual hiring tactic among those who call themselves the elite. Once you are accepted, they typically only accept their own kind. Ruthless, narcissistic, they look for these traits. You will be taught that in order to be a part of the club, you need to be capable of secrecy and tact when dealing with those who are deemed less than you. Once you join the club, even at the bottom, you are taught that you are still far more advanced and advantaged than the common people. This division is ingrained into you from the start. If you decide to go to medical school, you will be courted by the big pharmaceutical companies with gifts of pens and school supplies with their brand new drug and company logo. If they see you becoming a good salesperson for their company, the gifts will get better as you advance through school. They have people who watch for this exact thing, the ones who learn to do as they are told without question, get lavish trips and larger gifts like cars and box-seat tickets to sporting events. Anything to create an efficient employee of the medical community. If you choose to become a lawyer, you are taught acts and statutes which are not laws. You are taught various court procedure that teaches you how to become a good collector of revenue for the state. Once you have reached a certain degree of trust within the law society, you can then become a judge. This hierarchy is a fine line. You are now entering the top echelons of the law society, and with this they expect complete loyalty to their agenda, no matter what that entails. So now you're finally a doctor or lawyer, and you have a fancy car and a nice house, and you see yourself as someone of importance within society. It took a few years, so the position is very valuable to you. You do know, however, that this position can be taken from you at any time. If you choose to betray your loyalty to the club, that loyalty will be tested. Occasionally, you will be told to do things that go against your better nature. That is, if by this time you still have one left. They are grooming you now for true loyalty. The people running the show are unscrupulous, and they not only own the position they allowed you, but they also own the media. From the inside, they may find one of your cohorts engaging in something they find embarrassing or dangerous to them, so suddenly that individual will find himself on the news being charged with some made-up frame-up of charges. Typically very embarrassing stuff, charges like rape, child molesting, or the like. They will make it very clear to everyone that this is what happens if you go against the club. You will lose everything. Blackmail is one of their favorite tools. But of course, if you do what you are told and stay quiet, you will stay rich and comfortable and possibly excel to higher levels within the club. In Canada, these are known as the Order of Canada, or you may be knighted, or what have you, but all these things are derived by positions in the Masonic order. You may be wondering why I haven't talked about the police so far. When you think police in any situation, they are the front line of protection for the state. These men and women who probably graduate on low average maybe did well in the sports, but they're easy for the state to mold into mercenary police force protection racket. They are not here to protect you from anything much anymore. They used to be here to protect and to serve, but now they are, for the most part, merely paid mercenaries protecting the state. They may think they are doing what is right, but many are simply corrupt. They know what they are doing and they steal from you, or assault you, or violate you in every way possible. If you give a man a gun and give him an immunity from prosecution, he will become a power-hungry monster. These men and women are also hired with certain traits and commonalities. They are also men and women who have a blind belief in government and what they think is law enforcement when it's not. These are people who can be told to do anything and they will do it if told by a judge or one of the commanders, but they do it without question, which makes them the most dangerous human beings on the planet next to soldiers. The difference between soldiers and cops is soldiers kill anything and everything as an occupation, but police have to maintain a certain level of decorum and procedure while doing their job of violating you. This is a very well planned out thing, though. The people who control the police have many hundreds of years to know what that thin blue line really is. The reason so many people now see the corruption within the police force is that they have gotten so greedy, and the police state has become mainstream obvious. Moments like the G20 protests in Montebello with clear evidence of agent provocateurs from within the police force is causing damage to incite riots and to facilitate arrests. Police now engaging in summary convictions and arbitrary roadside thefts and assaults. This is very common now. Police being told to question everything for ID, everyone for ID, any possible thing that might happen for ID, the second anyone does anything that may seem out of the ordinary or for questioning their perceived authorities. Police are now openly engaging in fraud and racketeering schemes on a daily basis. There seems to be no limit to the human rights violations that these police will go around to fulfill their duty of stealing for the state. The police, however, are the people that we need to discuss things with. They are the ones we have the best chance of teaching the true laws to and who the true criminals really are. They just don't know it yet. But when the choices have to be made, they are the ones who will be the front line of the resistance as well as the protectors of it. How do we accomplish this daunting task? We all simply need to talk to them, make them aware of what they are doing peacefully, warn them of the vulnerable line that they walk, explain to them that we are not the enemy and that the true enemy of the people is those who would command them to harm us. Yes, there are probably more violent psychopaths in the police forces now. Many are narcissistic megalomaniacs. Many are thieves with badges. And many are beyond redemption, but we must try to reach these people every chance we can. In case you're unaware of the true source of the elite's power, it's through the media. This is how they create the perception they create. Since the beginning, propaganda has been the tool that the elites have used to do many things. They spend lots of money to create that perception. They hire fancy-looking, sexy commentators and news anchors to tell you what they want and what they want you to know. This has been happening since the beginnings of radio and TV, newsprint, and religion even. It is all the same. It is all just media. It is adult indoctrination maintenance. They now stage and create the news to skew your perceptions. They know that they can so very easily reach right into your homes with lies of all types and make excuses for every violation they commit. It really is the main source of their evil next to the money they create. I will talk about the true sources shortly, but it does all come down to moneyed people who want their secrets kept. The media does this. They hand you morsels of truth and flashy beads of entertainment to distract you from the things that you should be knowing, the things that really affect you. They know that if they can distract you with sex and violence and sports and gambling, you will never take a moment to see how completely enslaved you are by new laws, constant restrictions, and everything you want to do and how you want to do it peacefully, living out your lives lawfully and without state interruption or controls. They corrupt all that using their TV. If I watch just a few moments of TV, I feel my IQ drop about 50%. Another place we need to reach is to the people who tell the so-called news. They are paid very well to lie, but to them the simple excuse is that they are simply reading what they are told to say. It's a job. We must find a way to get people to stop using the lame excuse of it's just my job when lives and dignities are at stake and freedoms and people hanging in the balance. Find these people, meet them, get to know them, and see if they have any ideas how we can make them stop lying. Perhaps they themselves want to stop. I'm going to leave this here as I hope this will make people think about the things that have created the lives and lives that they live in. Everything comes down to the people who create the money, though. The Rothschild family, who created the Federal Reserve Bank and the International Monetary Fund and the IRS and the FDIC. The people who have funded both sides of every war since they came into power through banking process. They create as much money as they need to pay the judges and the cops and the politicians and the soldiers so they can gain whatever they want. It's not about money for these people since they have all of it. It's about greed. It's about property. They murder people daily and control everything just to see if they can. They are truly evil and the ultimate narcissistic psychopathy. There are many people that work hand in hand with these Rothschilds. The Rockefellers mentioned earlier, who own the Twin Towers, which they destroyed intentionally to help their cause of world domination. Yes, that sounds hokey, but that's what it was. That is what they're doing. I can't imagine anyone who can watch a steel building fall to the ground in 10 seconds think it was not intentional, and then to add 3 more on the same place in the same day. You have to know the fluoride and TV and the education systems are working very hard to make people incredibly dumb. If you want to look up any of the information in this video, go to World Wide Web 911docs.net, Google the Rothschild timeline, look up the Freeman Societies and the Guardians of the Free Republics, look up the Sovereign Education and Defense Ministry, and start to learn who the true slavers of this world are, and learn your rights. Know the truth and demand freedom. Peace to you all. I'm Mika, the family Rasila, and this has been a public freedom announcement.